So maybe if you can just start by introducing yourself and saying whether this is your first Sleepout.
Hi, I'm Christine Forster. I'm a councillor on the City of Sydney. This is my very first Sleepout, so I'm looking forward to it, but with some trepidation as to how cold and how uncomfortable it might be this evening.
And what are you expecting from tonight? What are you expecting to hear about the experience?
Well, obviously this is a big gathering of people who really have a lot of power and influence and success in Sydney and in Australia. So it's a great group of people to come together to think about the really difficult and entrenched problems of homelessness in Australian society today, and to talk about ideas as to how things might be improved, how those problems can be addressed. Obviously to engage with the service providers that are here, with St Vincent's and the other service providers, to see what they can do from their side of things to help with dealing with this problem.
Absolutely. I think there's one really interesting thing within tonight to explore is that relationship of what businesses can actually start to do and partner up with these services.
Absolutely. There's a huge opportunity for corporate philanthropy in this sector, and obviously so many of these CEOs and their companies would already be being very generous in their giving of funds and of gifts in kind to support the work that terrific services like St Vinny's are doing. So hopefully this just opens the door to get that dialogue and flow of ideas and flow of discussion open and happening and engaged, so that how corporate Australia is interacting with the service providing sector can only be strengthened.
Why do you think there's an epidemic of homelessness in Australia?
Sorry, I hear that.
Why do you think? Yeah, it is quite loud. Why do you think homelessness is on the rise? Why do you think there's an epidemic in Australia?
Well, I guess it's a complex problem, isn't it? And there are all sorts of different reasons why people become homeless. It doesn't take very much bad luck for a person to go from being in a job to finding themselves on the streets, out of work, perhaps dealing with depression, dealing with family breakdown for a variety of reasons. And we are all vulnerable to that. The most secure CEO in their job can have a run of events that would end up, to culminate with them ending up being on the streets. None of us are immune to that type of problem, and I guess as a society with issues such as mental health, depression, drug abuse, drug and alcohol abuse, substance abuse, that all is contributing to the problem, and are the reasons why people find themselves on the streets, find themselves without a home. And really, as a society, I believe we have to take a holistic approach to how we address that. So looking at all those different aspects of why people end up on the streets.
One of the big focuses this year is affordable housing. And what do you think? Can you reflect on that maybe on the current state?
I mean, affordable housing is a really difficult issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed by governments at all levels, from local through to state and federal, because we need affordable housing. I mean, for lower paid workers to be able to afford to live in good quality accommodation close to their jobs, or as close to transport that can get them to their jobs, is a vital part of what we need to provide our economies, our societies in Australia. So it's a big problem. Vinnie's is talking about some solutions, some ideas to help solve that in terms of through negative gearing allowances, focusing that on affordable housing rather than just investment properties generally. And it really is up to governments at all levels to look at what they can do to start to lift the supply of affordable housing in our cities and suburbs.
Next is the 10th anniversary, so it's a
of
big
the Sleepout.
of the Sleepout. So it's a big sleep out. And one thing is maybe, is there any individual or individuals that you would like to sort of set forth the challenge? Anyone that you'd like to see coming on board?
Well, the Lord Mayor of Sydney, Clover Moore, I don't think she's here tonight, so it'd be great to see Clover Moore come and do it next year. A certain member of my family, the Prime Minister of Australia, could probably come along and do it. That would be fantastic. I'll have a word with him and see if we can get him along for next year.
And maybe last question, is there a message that you have for Australians?
I think it would probably be to just be aware of this problem. Australians are incredibly generous, and they naturally give of themselves, and I think that they feel mostly Australians feel that they are very lucky and that they are in a position to do things to help people that are less fortunate. And just to remind Australians that is the case. There are people that are very much less fortunate than we are, and there are things that we can do through giving of our time and giving of our resources and engaging with the people that are really working at the coalface to help address this problem.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time.